And it is now time for Tillamook Today with LeeAnn, Neal, and this morning's guest, Commissioner Tim Josi. Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, Tim's here. He just recently attended the first steering committee meeting for the Cape Kiwanda safety issues. There was a town hall about that a while back, and the group that got put together actually just met. So what can you tell us about that?
Well, it was an introductory meeting, and so that was good. I spent quite a bit of time putting this together, and then basically handed it off to the Oregon Departments of Oregon Parks Department. I was going to say Fish and Wildlife, and so they took it over from there. But this whole thing started because of concern by citizens in Cape Kiwanda about primarily young kids under the age of 26,
right,
from about 16 to 26. This is before their prefrontal lobe cortex is developed.
That's right.
That's a mouthful, and I might be wrong.
Something in there though that tells them what's safe or not.
There's a part of young people's brains that just doesn't fully develop and doesn't put on the brakes for them. Say, well, this may not be a good idea. They don't have caution,
right?
And you don't develop that until you get a little bit older. And for boys, it's longer than girls. Girls, they early 20s, their prefrontal cortex develops, and boys, it's not until they're 26.
Yeah,
they mentioned that yesterday, and I said that's because boys are special. Yeah, we don't potty train until later either, generally.
And the car insurance rates are different, I think, too.
Right. It's amazing more of us don't get killed. So, anyway, speaking about getting killed, that's what this was all about.
That's right.
Young people go up there, and they cross the fence, and then they get themselves in trouble. And we've just had, since the beginning of 2014, 6 or 7, or maybe even 8 deaths. You may know.
Well, it's terrible, but I always have to look again when I go to write about it because I can't keep track. It's been so many.
But then they can go for several years and not have a death. But I think what we're seeing now is going to be the norm because that area's been discovered. You go there on a nice day on a weekend, and it's just packed. And so you get kids go up there and they like to party, and they're even we have pictures of young fathers lifting their kids over the fence.
Yeah. And
so that's just an amazing thing because they're teaching their kids. But here's the issue. People look at that fence and it says danger. They don't see the danger.
Right.
And it's not like if you're going to the Grand Canyon and there's a fence there and you go up to the fence and maybe 2 feet away the cliff starts.
Right.
Very apparent what the danger is.
Right.
With Cape Kiwanda, the danger is two kinds of dangers, and you don't see it from the fence. One of them is there's a slope in the sand that if once you get on that slope and it can break loose, it'll take you down to the edge, and then you drop 60, 70, 80 feet down to the rocks or the ocean below. And so that's part of it. People, they step on that slope, and all of a sudden they're gone.
Right.
And if somebody tries to catch them, they go with them. So that's one of the problems. People, it's not readily recognizable. The other area is what they call the bowl.
Yeah.
And the bowl is an area that is surrounded on two sides by a cliff, and then the east side, away from the ocean, it's a gradual slope down to that bowl, and then of course the water sweeps in there. And at low tide, that area is not dry, but there's not water in it, but it's slippery. It's hard to get down there because of the incline is slippery, and so you can be down there. And then I heard a couple of stories yesterday where people were actually 2 stories. People were actually went down to a certain degree and yelled at him and says, "Do you know what the danger is here? You get a wave sweeping in, it'll take you out, and you're stuck. You get swept out in the ocean." And in both cases, the people recognized the danger and left. And as soon as they got out of the danger zone, a rogue wave came in, and it would have taken them out.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very deceptive there too. Like you said, that gradual slope. It looks easy, like you could come right back up it, no problem, but it's not that. That's not the case.
So here's that's the issue that I think we face. You're not going to stop people from crossing the fence.
Right.
Everybody wants to cross the fence. I want to cross the fence, but I don't, because I'm a county commissioner and I have to set an example.
That's right.
So I'm going to be a good boy.
Right.
But we have to figure out how to explain in signs what the inherent danger is, so people understand, and then maybe even have a memorial sign where show. It has to be both.
Yeah.
There has to be a sign that explains what the danger is and why, and then follow up with a memorial sign that shows the number of people that have died, their names, and their dates, and when they were born, when they died, and or the age anyway.
Right.
And so and we've seen some really nice pictures of that. Beyond that, I'm not sure what we could do. I didn't bring it up yesterday, but I was thinking to myself, well, I was raised on a dairy farm,
right?
And we know how to keep cows in one pasture and away from another. That's an electric fence.
Exactly.
Well,
or a herd dog.
Yeah, but I knew better than I'd have gotten laughed out. but anyway, Dave Gomberg was there. He's the state representative. He's our state representative from about Tillamook East, city of Tillamook South rather.
Yeah.
And then same goes for Arnie Roebland, our state senator.
Right.
So they were there, and we had a bunch of folks from various interest groups. I thought it was really good.
Good.
And it was, and because State Parks is running the meetings, they had an agenda all set up, and they had a facilitator, and we put stuff on the board in terms of ideas and whatnot. So we'll be meeting again, but we don't know just when. But they have to. This was sort of a brainstorming session. People just put things on the board, and so they're going to assimilate that information, come back with some recommendations, and get back to us. And so in about 3 meetings, I think we should be done.
Okay.
And then they'll go into the action plan.
Okay. And so will this be something that the Parks Department does administratively when they decide what to do, or does it have to go through any kind of an official board? Does the Board of Commissioners have to approve it?
No, it's state forest, it's Parks land.
Yeah.
And so they'll have to go before their park commission.
The commission. Okay.
Only if it's administrative rules.
Right.
I suppose, though, that I'll back up a step. Being on state commissions myself for a number of years, without being on LCDC,
right?
They will report back to the commission about what they're doing and then seek input. So
yeah. Well, it sounds like it's moving full steam ahead. That's great.
Yeah, and the folks from state parks are really good to work with.
Yeah,
I enjoy them.
Yeah.
And so we're, speaking of that, we're working on in the developing or the early stages of looking at maybe some land swaps or some sort of a working relationship where Tillamook County Parks can work with state parks. They're very interested in Whalen Island.
Oh, okay.
We're very interested in Whalen Island too. They own half of it, or actually more than half of it, but we own the camping area.
That's right.
And so that brings in $80,000 to $100,000 a year. They'd like to have that. They want it bad.
Yeah.
And so, so they want to come up with some sort of an agreement, but. And I've been talking with our parks director, Dill Schleichert, and we're going to go out there and look at maybe there's a Bob Straub Park.
Right.
There's some land on that we own, I think. Although now there's question about that.
Oh.
The parking area.
Yeah.
But there's a fence beyond the fenced area to the south. It's a primitive area that just has a shore pine in it.
Okay.
And so Dell and I'll go and look at that and then see if there's a potential for some sort of a land swap. And then we're also looking as part of the Cape Kiawanda or Pacific City Master planning effort, looking at Webb Park.
Oh, right.
And maybe moving that facility further east and onto land that the county owns, and then have Webb Park maybe be some additional parking.
I see.
So we just don't know. But here the bottom line is that we have to make sure that our park system stays whole.
Yeah.
And our park system is really designed to pay for itself.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not in the general fund. So that we call them a special revenue fund, which means that they live or die on the revenues that they receive.
Right.
And so they have to treat this system like a park. And not all of the parks make money. Some of the smaller ones don't.
Okay.
And so the ones that do make money, you want to make sure that you nurture those.
Right.
And continue to grow them, and then at the same time, and they pay for the parks that don't make money.
So like Barview is probably pretty popular, I would imagine.
Barview is by far the jewel of
Yeah.
Tillamook County.
Yeah.
It's the one that pays for a lot of other things. We have Kelchis and the Trask, and there's lots of room for further development there. They pay for themselves, but not like Barview does.
Yeah.
Webb Park pays for itself. Whalen Island pays for itself. But then we have a bunch of these other small little park systems and bathrooms, like the bathrooms at Cape Kiwanda State Park or County Parks owns that, and so they have to pay for that. That's a good $40,000 to $80,000 drain every year.
Yeah, and the dumpsters too, if I remember correctly.
Oh, that's a big issue. But it looks like we've got that taken care of. So
good.
Anyway, so that's what we're working on. I don't know whether we're going to get there or not, but I've committed to state parks that we would give this a good look. The other thing is we've got a parking lot in Nesco that is owned by state parks.
Right.
They got it from the federal government through the Land and Water Program. That's part of this. That's good enough. Yeah. But anyway, it takes about 3 or 4 years to go through the process. If you want to give part of that land up, you have to find a like piece of property. So the reason why we're interested in that parking lot is because we're in the process of developing a new access out of Nesco in the event of a flood.
Okay.
And it's really important to the people in Nesco as it should be.
Right.
But at the terminus out of there is that parking lot. And so they're willing to trade us a like parcel of property, and they have their eyes on Whalen Island.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Well, it doesn't seem like a very fair trade to me.
Right, because the parking lot doesn't make any money.
Yeah, and so in a sense, the folks in Nesco are being held hostage. And I don't know what to do about that, quite frankly. I mean, I don't like what is going on, so we're going to have to figure out what to do. So as the liaison to the Parks Department, that falls into that's my area of one of my areas of responsibility.
Oh man, well. On that note, let's take a break and get a word from our sponsor here, Clark's Plumbing. Do you know one of those do-it-yourself kind of guys? They're always telling you to do it yourself. Sometimes that isn't the best solution. You're in luck whether it's a leaky faucet, a complete bathroom remodel, or maybe replacing that septic system. Do yourself a favor, call Clark's Plumbing. They're professionals, they'll get the job done. Anything, new installations, upgrades, that stopped up drain, you name it, they can do it. So the next time you hear do it yourself, do yourself a favor and dial 842-5105 for Clark's Plumbing. That's 842-5105 for the professionals at Clark's Plumbing. So
it gives me a chance to regroup and think about where we should go next.
Yeah.
So let's talk about state forestry, and the reason why is because the Department of Forestry and the Board of Forestry are going to be in Tillamook the next couple of days.
Oh, aren't they touring the forest here too again?
Yes,
yeah.
And so that's on Thursday.
Okay.
And we're going to spend most of the day up there, and then we're going to be eating at the Jones Creek Wayside.
Okay.
And I've got a 15-minute segment to talk to them as the chair of the trust counties. And so in this case, I'll be talking to them about recreation.
Okay.
And the reason why they want me to do this is because I'm a Tillamook County Commissioner, chair of the trust counties and all that stuff. But I was in the legislature when House Bill 2501 passed. And you don't know what that is.
No.
But the only reason why I remember the number 2501 is the Space Odyssey.
Oh, well, there you go. That's easy.
But anyways, this is not a Space Odyssey. This was the recreation plan. It was my first year in the Oregon legislature, and I was assigned to the Natural Resource Committee, and Department of Forestry wanted to develop a bill that authorized recreation and also the beginning process for creating an interpretive center. And so I opposed it at first, but the state forester at the time, Jim Brown, great guy, really bright, had sawdust in his veins, and I miss him dearly because I think we need his leadership now, but that's another story.
Yeah.
He's been retired for a long time. But he told me, he says, Tim, they're already recreating out there. And so what we need to do is create the rules and the sideboards for recreation. And so that's what so we passed the bill. And then the other thing is it set a path forward to creating the interpretive center. Now, the interpretive center took, a few $1 million, not a lot, but I don't have the exact number. But I remember as soon as, 3 or 4 years later, I got a call from the Department of Forestry to meet with them in their district office in Tillamook, adjacent to the fair, during the fair. So I went and talked to them, and Doug Decker, who's now the state forester, he was there. Mark Labhart, who was the district forester, was there.
Right. And
then Mike Borlon, who was the state forest plan assistant forester, something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, they said, Tim, we need to raise a bunch of money, and we want you to be in charge of going to all of the counties that have timberlands and see if you can't get them to contribute. And at that time, so I agreed. And so at that time, we were the counties that had U.S. Forest Service or BLM forest lands were receiving some dollars in lieu of the timber receipts that we used to get, and part of those, either 15 or 20% of that went into a program that we called Title III, which at that time allowed for, and it's still going on, but to a much smaller degree, but it allowed for spending money on educational programs to facilitate forestry.
Oh, okay.
And so some of these counties got a bundle of money. For us, it wasn't, we got about $125,000 a year at that time, much, much less than that now, but maybe it was double that, but it still wasn't a lot.
Yeah.
So Doug and I, but some of them, they brought in $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 a year because the majority of their land was U.S. Forest Service or BLM.
Okay.
And so we went, and Doug and I traveled all over the state and together and visiting with different boards, and we raised about $750,000.
Wow, that's not bad.
So we spent a lot of time talking. By that time, Mark was a county commissioner, but Mark recognized that I'd already gotten involved in state forestry issues when he was a district forester, and he needed to really divorce himself from that issue, and so he's never been involved in state forestry issues. Just peripherally, he'll ask me what's going on, and I'll tell him. Or in board meetings when we have to make a decision, of course he weighs in. But in terms of the working relationship, he's not there. He shouldn't be there.
Right.
And so he recognized that, and I appreciate that. So anyway, I'm going to be talking about the history of the recreation program with House Bill 2501. And then I'm going to go in and I'm going to talk about some of the really good things that are going on. So, before I go any further, we have people from the Willamette Valley, not a lot of them.
Yeah.
It's really tyranny by the minority. There are people that want to they want to lock up our forest lands, and they say it should be set aside for the people in the Willamette Valley who like to recreate out there. And that's a very, very selfish attitude. And it's county commissioners that do that, by and large, from that area.
Like
but
from Multnomah or Washington?
Washington County more than anything else. Multnomah County, they're actually pretty good. But and then there are some environmental organizations that feel the same way. The Wild Salmon Center, which is my arch nemesis, but they say that. First of all, that's very selfish because we rely on those timber jobs for our rural communities, and we rely on the timber receipts for our general fund, which funds about 20% of our general fund. Without that, we'd be in bigger trouble than we are now. So, but on top of it, here's the rest of the story. They're recreating the heck out of those areas. Right. And just in the Tillamook district, 325 miles of motorized trails, mostly motorcycle and quad, 20 miles of non-motorized trails, 5 campgrounds, 4 off-highway vehicle staging areas, 6 developed day-use sites, over 100 designated dispersed campsites. And so Tillamook District had over 12,000 people stay, almost 25,000 visitor nights last year. Visitor growth has climbed almost 30% over the last 3 years. And then they saw in 2015 there was $68,243 in revenues from the camping areas. So the bottom line, it's happening already. And here's the real message. We really can have it all in our state forest lands. We're in a situation where we can. This is an actively managed forest. We can protect our fish and wildlife, and we're doing that. And we can also provide recreation. So we have developed a win-win-win on our state forest lands that's happening right now. And for the people that want to take these lands away, they really don't have any justification. They don't have any justification in terms of what it's doing environmentally, because the studies have already shown that forest practices, especially on state forest lands, are not hurting fish at all, not hurting stream temperatures or water quality or any of that. They know that, but they keep saying it. Bugs me.
So there's a constant tension there between the people that would prefer not to see much logging, if any, and the people that want to continue to manage it for multi-purposes. And
when I say tyranny by the minority, what I mean is that even in the Willamette Valley, polling data has shown that the vast majority of the people throughout Oregon, and including the Willamette Valley, think that our forests are being adequately managed in terms of protecting our fish and wildlife and recreation values and all that sort of thing. So it's just a few. But the few are the people, the zealots. Number one, the true believers. I can talk. Some of those people are my friends. I can talk to them until I'm blue in the face. They won't believe me. I've gone to the dark side as far as they're concerned. They'll believe the rhetoric that comes from these organizations like the Sierra Club, the Audubon Society, and the Wild Salmon Center, and Defenders of Wildlife. They'll just feed them information that's not true, and they believe it.
So when you're talking to the Board of Forestry and whoever else is there on Thursday, you're going to just try to make a case to continue to manage it for multi-purposes.
So yes, and so let's get to the meeting tomorrow.
Okay.
As the chair of the trust counties, I will be testifying and on behalf of the counties. So first of all, that's all day and starts, I think, at 8:30. It's at Tillamook Bay Community College. There'll be signs, so people want to, if they're interested in this issue, and they have the time.
Yeah,
they ought to go, because the Board of Forestry spends a lot of time dealing with a lot of issues like riparian areas for private forest lands, and of course the state forest management plan. But they're also working on trying to reconcile the difference on our federal forest lands, which I haven't gotten into. But I have I'll be testifying tomorrow. I probably won't be saying an awful lot but that's to be seen. I show up. I'll show up and I'll listen to what they're saying, and then I start jotting down notes and saying, I want to talk about this, and so pretty soon my little 5-minute talk goes into a 15-minute talk, which is the way it always is. But the main theme of my testimony for tomorrow is going to be, they have got to figure out what they're doing, because the department is going broke. They laid off a few years ago. They laid off a third of their employees. Now they're projecting. Now they're planning on laying off with the people that they have now 10% more.
And this is all forestry department.
Well, it's a forestry department.
Wow.
And it's because they're going broke. And when they finally realized that they were going broke, the former board chair said, this is an emergency and it needs to be taken care of. And they were going to have this thing wrapped up and finished by November of last year. Mm-hmm. And then they said, no, it's going to be November of 16. Now they're saying maybe November of 17, maybe even 19. And so in the meantime, they're going to be completely out of money by 2020. But they have to have a plan in place no later than 2017, because they have timber sales that they have to produce under the new forest management plan. And then when a successful bidder has up to 3 years to harvest the timber.
Oh, okay.
And so there's a money flow problem that they're faced with. And then after the plan is developed, then it takes another year for them to develop the what they call the 10-year implementation plan. And so that's 4 years now suddenly. So anyway, they're going broke, and there just doesn't seem to be a sense of urgency. And in fact, there are a couple of members on the board that represent the environmental community, and they don't say this, but it appears to be their game plan. What they want to do is they want to say, well, why don't we look at this or why don't we look at that? And I'll give you a quick example with the time that I have left. And this really is an exclamation point on, this is a good example, in other words. We finally agreed with, and the board agreed, that they ought to have a portfolio program worth 70% would be actively managed, 30% would be set aside as a preserve. Now, how the 70% is actively managed and to what level is up for debate.
Right.
And then the 30%, should it be locked up or should it be dispersed like it already is, in riparian areas and steep slopes that can be logged and that sort of thing. And so we're having those discussions, which are legitimate discussions. And then the environmental community said, look, we're not really gaining anything from the new proposed plan, so why don't we take 17%, which is our perceived loss in terms of acres, and off of the 70%. Take it off, and then do something different, some sort of middle road. And at the last Board of Forestry meeting, I testified before them, and this was in Salem, and I said, and the board sanctioned this, and now so they're going through this new study, which won't pencil out. And I told the board, I says, this just doesn't make sense. You can't afford to do this,
right?
And then I said, a 6-year-old can figure this out, and so
this would make it instead of 30/70, it would be like 47 whatever, and so that would be
47/17 and 30.
47/53.
Yeah,
but it'd be closer to half and half.
Yeah. So anyway, 70/60 50 53, right?
Yeah.
How good I do with math. Anyway, so the board chair he took exception to what I said, but I was right. He knows it, and now they're still doing it. I told them then that I have county commissioners from across the state that are upset with what you're not doing, and now you plan on doing this. I said, they're ready to revolt. And I said, I have to do everything that I can to make sure that this doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And so then I got a little bit chastised by the board and then by the two environmental members by saying, well, it's important that we do this analysis. Oh, baloney. But anyway, it was just like 2 or 3 weeks later that Lynn County filed this class action lawsuit.
Right.
That says that the damages going back to the early 90s, if you add it all up, the lack of timber revenue for not just counties but schools and special districts for the 15 counties is $1.4 billion.
Yeah.
You would think that would get their attention. But instead, what they've decided to do is just continue along with this lackadaisical look at the program, and in the meantime, lay off another $1 million worth of employees.
Boy. Yeah, I didn't realize it was quite that they were experiencing quite the shortfall within the department.
So it's a mess. I get so bone weary about this. I don't know if I am going to get this resolved in my lifetime.
Yeah, well, you've definitely been deep into it from the beginning. I mean, you've been working on it for a long time.
And their county commissioners are getting pretty annoyed by this whole process, and in some ways, they're getting a little bit annoyed at me.
Well, because you're you're representing everything.
They think I should do a better job of cracking the whip, I guess. I don't have any authority. All I can do is just raise hell.
Well, right. You're going in there and just trying to make a case.
Yeah.
And hoping that they'll come your way. So, well, let us know next time you're here how it all goes. I mean,
and I'll say one more thing. And then on top of that, we had one of the smaller counties. It's a bigger county than Tillamook, but they don't have much timberland.
Yeah.
Very little. But anyway, Lynn County.
Yeah.
They sent a notice of an intent to withdraw from the Council of Forest Trustland Counties.
Oh.
So now we're fighting that issue.
No. Oh boy, it's just getting more and more complicated.
And the irony of the whole thing is, for the first 2 or 3 years as a county commissioner, the chair of the trust counties was Mike Propes.
Oh yeah.
And he was from Polk County, and he was the chair. I was his vice chair, and he was strong. I mean, he was just bullish when it came to lecturing the board on getting off the dime and getting things done.
Yeah.
So now he's passed away, and so now Lynn County, and then the vice chair, my vice chair, is from Lynn County, and now they want to pull out of the organization.
Leave you on your own.
I know.
Standing there.
This is just causing me a lot of stress, and I don't know what to do about it.
Well, I'm sure sorry about that. That's part of the job. That's a little bit more than you hope for.
You get kicked in the shins from all sides sometimes.
Yeah. Become the piñata. Well, Tim, here's to it. Good luck. Let us know how it goes, and hopefully the rest of your month won't be so bad.
Well, thank you. It's always a pleasure talking to you.
All right. You take care.
Bye now.
Thanks for listening to Tillamook Today.